Hello again. Welcome everyone to this week's Balance Your Productivity Live. And if you're listening into this, say hi. Feel free to ask a question or add a comment, and I will try to get to those in the session as long as I can see them okay. And if you have any questions or comments afterwards, or if you're watching the recording, do feel free to pop something in the comments and I can reply back to you. So we're on to several of these sessions now, and what I wanted to cover this time around is core values. This is something which essentially are the underlying principles by which you live your life, and they're made up of your principles, behaviours, beliefs, and apply to the way you live and work. So they're the guiding principles on how you do the things that you do, understanding right and wrong, and the way that you essentially live your life. So there are lots of different core values that we all have, and everyone's different because obviously we're all different people. And you need to choose or understand what your core values are in enabling you to live according to those core values. What we tend to find is if you're living your core values, then you're in the flow, you're feeling happy, you're feeling fulfilled, and life is fairly stress-free. And when you don't, you find yourself in conflict, or you're unhappy, or you're not working well. So it's good to understand what your core values are. And this is often one of the questions which I ask people when I start working for them, to really understand where they're coming from and what's important to them. So there are lots and lots of different types of core values, and there's a very good exercise to go through and understand what your core values are. And they can be things like dependability, reliability, commitment, honesty and integrity. Family, people might be something that's important to you, compassion, adventure, motivation, feeling positive, optimism, passion for the things that you do, respect. So they're all expressions of how you live your life and how people will interact with you as well. So this is where if you come into conflict, it's likely that your values aren't being respected, or that you're not able to express your values in what you do. So understanding your core values helps you also to identify companies in which you feel happier working. Organisations will also have values. It's something that a lot more businesses and organisations are doing now. They establish what those core values are and they communicate those to their employees. So it's about how they serve their customers, how they treat their employees, and how they run as an organisation. So organisations can have values, and you will also have your own values. And if they're a good fit, then you're going to be working very well together and they mesh well. If you don't, if you have an organisation that's perhaps very money or very results focused, or a job that's very results focused, and that's not one of your core values, that's where you might come into conflict. So your core values will help you identify whether you are on the right track doing what you're doing, and enable you to live a more fulfilled life. I often find with people that when their core values are not being respected, that's where the conflict comes in, and that's where they have issues with feeling respected, actually being able to be productive. They might be feeling overwhelmed or particularly stressed when they're not. So it's about understanding, communicating and living to your core values. Your core values may change over time. Some of the real core values are going to be fairly consistent from year to year and when your personal circumstances change. But you might find that you have a core value might be around money when you're younger. And then as you get older, family commitment, security and freedom and flexibility might be something that becomes your core value. So looking at understanding your core values, whether you know what they are or not, if you value things like particularly your family, and again, in the context of how I work, if you find that you're working very long hours, that you don't have time to spend with family and friends and social lives, then that core value is not being met. So defining your core values, when you look at what they are, think about times when you were happiest. What was it? What were you doing in that context? Who were you with? What were you doing? Where were you? And what were the factors that were contributing to that sense of happiness and where you were? Have a look at times when you felt most proud about what you were doing. So what was it that you were doing in particular? What was it you were proud of? What were other people doing? How were they interacting with you? And what other factors were contributing to that feeling? Think about times when you were feeling most fulfilled and happy and satisfied. Again, what did that feel like? What were you doing? Where were you? And what were you experiencing? What were the things that you were doing? And thinking about those, identify what your top values are based around all those experiences of when you feel good, when you feel happy, when you're content, when you're feeling a sense of self-worth and feeling respected. And think about what each of those experiences mean to you. And you can then start to develop a list of values that are important to you, and aim for around 5 to 10 top values. If you have too many, then it can be more difficult to really get down to what's that core is. There are a lot of things that are important to us within our lives, but not all of them are about a core value. And there are core values exercises available. I have a worksheet that you can work through if you would like to understand and know and perhaps clarify what your core values are, if this is not an exercise that you've done before. And it's a sheet where you start out just connecting with and thinking about those different experiences of what your core values are, and then slowly whittle them down to the top 5, top 10 values that are important to you, and you can then identify what those core values are. And when you've got your list of core values, consider how they are reflected in where you are at the moment. Are you really living to those core values? For instance, integrity and honesty often come up top on people's lists of core values. They're two of mine. And do you really live your life with integrity? Are you really honest about what you do? Are the core values reflected in how you live your day-to-day life and how you work? And also you might then get a sense of perhaps one of your core values helps you to work, or perhaps is not being respected at work, or that's why you find you're feeling overwhelmed and stressed out, or you're not happy in your work because one of your core values is not being met. So it's good to have a look at those and sort of see how they're reflected in your life and how they're reflected at work. And if they're not, what could you do to live in a more value-focused way? Or what could you change about the way that you work? Perhaps it's something about community or communication or engagement at work. And there may be steps that you can take that will, even though we can't immediately all change career and go on off and do a different job, there are certain things that you can change about your mindset to help you work to those core values. And if your organisation or the business that you work for, even if you're running your own business, you can think about what the core values are that you want for that business, and think about, again, whether they're the same or different to who you are and what you do. If you don't already, as I said, know what your core values are, then please do get in touch and I can send you the core values worksheet that I have so that you can work on that. And it is something that is important to get a sense of who you are and what you want, because it can help you focus on your goal setting side of things, to know that your core values are being met by that. So it's an important exercise to go through if you haven't gone through it already. So it's a little bit about core values, what they are and how important they are to you. And so do get in touch if you would like to go through that exercise for yourself. So until then, if you have any questions or any particular issues that you would like me to address in any of these sessions, then do get in touch. But otherwise, I will see you next time. Until then, stay productive and stay living a balanced way.